Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you today. Paul McLean gave me a great compliment earlier. He called me a broadcaster, which I'm really proud to be a broadcaster. I think since I started making enough money to file tax returns, I have always listed that as my occupation because I think it's just such a great industry to be in. I am a broadcaster. I'm certainly with QUU now. But if I haven't had the chance to visit with you before, I am a radio guy through and through. I started working in radio when I was 14, bought a little, you guys will appreciate this more than most audiences, 250 watt, daytime AM, 2-tower directional. You too can own a radio station when you're 21 if you want to buy one of those, in a double wide house trailer. So I know what it is to be flat broke, and I know what it is to be crawling on the ground in punch blocks and trying to get things working in there. But for the grace of God, I didn't kill myself inside that Gates 500 BCY transmitter. I didn't know what the kill stick was. So I just reach in and start doing stupid stuff. We have a great team. We're radio people working for radio stations. And that's what we really focus on and what we really to make sure that we do. I also want a couple of other thank yous. Nautel, we've got a great opportunity for a partnership that you're going to be hearing more about. I certainly hope you will go to the Nautel booth and see what happens. We're trying to simplify the metadata process for you. We're trying to simplify how to make your radio stations really look as good as they sound, compete in the world, and we're going to talk about some of those opportunities that are here. But to John and all the folks in Nautel, thank you very much for that. And then I've had an opportunity to speak to the Society of Broadcast Engineering, a couple of groups of late, and I've had a theme that I think is appropriate just to kind of lay the groundwork today. Thank you. And I say this as a broadcast owner. I say it as someone that spent about 20 years. I was chairman of the board at NAB and was executive vice president there. And now I'm at QUU. Thank you. The engineering community is the glue of our industry. You hold it together. You do it with smaller budgets, you do it with a lot more limited resources, you do it with the challenges of not as much backup equipment. I know what that is. Matter of fact, when I saw the picture of the potted meat, I thought that might have been from a Commonwealth company meeting because that looks about our budget level, and you were talking about that earlier today. But thank you, because you really are the guides for our industry as we're moving ahead. There's a lot of anxiety with the ownership, with the management, with the programming, with the sales. And as I've asked your colleagues that I've spoken to, have patience and shine that flashlight because the industry needs your help now more than ever. I'm going to share with you today some thought starters, and I'll just go ahead and begin by describing what QUU's mission is. There are 3 words in this mission that, and this is not a QUU sales pitch, it's as much just talking about the state of the industry, but where our perspective of where we're coming from. We want to be the trusted provider of visual imaging and content for the radio industry. And the big 3 words are trusted, visual, and radio. Guys, I know what it is when RDS and HD, and particularly the RDS technology where it was static, and for anything to happen, you had to go out to the transmitter site and you had to take your laptop and you had to reprogram it. And RDS technology and how you programmed your HD was quite frankly a pain in the ass for a lot of years. And so we are trying to give you a technology that makes it, number one, look great so your stations can be engaged and can make money. But the other thing that we're trying to do is take the weight off the very limited resources of the engineering team. You maintain the system, but you don't have to be involved in every keystroke and everything that happens with it. So today is about providing some fresh insights and giving you some revenue-driving solutions. Paul also mentioned our 2025 in-vehicle visuals report. I hope you're aware of this. This is free to everybody. You're not limited to QUU customers. But I hope you're aware that this resource is available to you. And what we have done is Joe Marshall and his team go out and we survey the 100 best-selling models for the previous year. We started this in 2024. We repeated it this year. We plan on continuing to repeat it. But this is available online free for you at QReports.com. Now, here's why we think this is important. Number one, we need to talk about the trends that the industry's seeing. But number two, maybe you're unique, but you probably have had a salesperson that comes in saying, it's not showing up on my radio. I can't see the pictures. I don't know what's going on. The client's called. You now have a resource, and listen, I'd love to say we've got every vehicle that's ever been manufactured, but we're a small company and we've at least got 200 plus there for you. And you can go in and you can look at these vehicles and you can see screenshots and you can see what it's supposed to look like on your dashboard, and I'll talk to you about that. But the trends that we're seeing, FM radio is in 100% of those models. AM radio is on 98%. That's pretty ubiquitous. HD is at 67%. It was 70% last year. That's a little bit of an anomaly because the Cadillac Escalade and the Corvette dropped out of the top 100 best-selling vehicles. And remember, this is not weighted. So vehicle number 100 counts the same as vehicle number 1. We're not trying to get into sales. We're trying to just get into how the models are equipped. You can see, however, that Sirius XM, Android Auto, and Apple CarPlay, they're right there with us. They're as ubiquitous as the radio industry is. Built-in streaming apps is something that really is growing very rapidly right now. And just to give you some insight, David Layer, I saw David earlier from NAB, they're aware of this. The U.S. auto industry, particularly General Motors, kind of went down this really unique path about 6-7 years ago where they wanted to implement things kind of on their own. They weren't really about playing in the sandbox with everybody else. They wanted to make a big data play. They started discontinuing as robust an engagement with HD as we, and I think the industry, wished they would. And they started getting into a lot of their own unique apps, or at least not unique apps, commonplace apps, but putting them in the dashboards as opposed to doing some other strategies. So these are innate built-in apps. These are not ones that are being brought in through Apple CarPlay or Android or through the user. The other things that we want to point out, text displays, 100% of the vehicles can display text. Historically, the industry has said, well, how many people can actually see it? It's about 80% of all the vehicles on the road, including school buses, construction fleets. It's 80% of all vehicles. But in the last 2 years, 100% of the vehicles being top models, 100% of the top 100 top models have the text ability, and 60% can display image. I think every broadcaster in America is from Missouri. Well, show me. I'm one of you. I get it. You know, I can't afford to put a lot of money into something that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to justify the ROI. I know what those pressures are. Now is the time. The HD technology is real. It's proven. DTS AutoStage is a fabulous new technology that our friends at Xperi are promoting. There are lots of opportunities, but now is the time for the radio industry. And then the radio button, which we will talk about, 36% of the vehicles had it last year. It's down to 26% of the vehicles this year, or 25%, 26%. So we've lost about a third, and that means that the radio is getting harder and harder to find. You go to the dashboard, Joe and his team put together a in-depth ability where you can see this level of information on every vehicle that's there. Even going down to the click-through, we have this depth of information, including pictures of what that vehicle looks like. So please make this available to you if you're troubleshooting, if you're trying to see listen, we all know the owner's car is not working like it's supposed to. And so you spend the day trying to figure that out. Well, if it's not equipped to begin with, we might be able to save you a few moments. If you have information at your ready availability that you can resource, we want to provide that to you. 6 key findings from the study this year. Number 1, most new models, 74%, default to the last audio source played. You're probably going to hear a lot about this. That's no big news if you think about radios for years. You got in the car the next day, you turned the key, it came back to the radio station you were listening to. But now it's doing that for the podcasts you're listening to. It's doing it for the Spotify. It's doing it for any other audio source, audiobook, whatever it might be. Radio stations have to earn the last touch. We cannot just be focused on morning drives any longer. We've got to earn the last touch. That's information you can take back to your owners, or if you are an owner, that's something you can convey with the rest of the staff. AM/FM radio is still ubiquitous, but it's harder to find, and it's harder to use in vehicles. Digital dashboards packed with more audio choices. No big news, but we've got to make sure that the industry doesn't put its head in the sand and not realize that. We have to state the facts and make sure that people see this. Detroit is doubling down on the built-in apps. Notice I say Detroit in particular. That is a phenomenon we see with the domestic car owners. International, not so much. But the big three, historic big three in Detroit, they are using that approach. 2 out of 3 new models are HD equipped, and all new vehicles can display text. That was the #1 finding from last year. We think it's still warranted being included, but it's not quite the headline. Key takeaways: AM/FM radio is still ubiquitous, but it's harder to find. Dashboards are built for all audio, not just for radio. Radio is one of the many choices in a market that has plenty of infotainment choices. All day parts gain importance of a car when it starts with the last audio heard. Stations have the focus for less competition. We need to focus our competition on all the other radio sources. If I've got 100.1, I don't need to be as concerned about 97.5. I need to be concerned about what's outside. So your engineering groups and other things that you can do to provide collaboration among that. Now is the time to shift gears and act. Let's don't delay any longer. But the last thing that I do want to point out, here's the bit of really good news for the industry. Of the audio sources in vehicles that make advertising available, you understand the differentiation I'm making? So if somebody's listening to Apple Music, exclude them. But of the audio sources that make advertising available, 86% of that listenership is still to radio. So we dominate the advertising-driven sector. That's not to mean, though, that somebody might change their model at some point in time in the future. Be compelling. Make sure that we earn the last touch. Built-in apps. Sorry, my glasses are fading. Built-in tools use the built-in tools to be able to compete better. That's kind of an obvious thing, but our radio industry is sometimes sluggish to do that. You can enhance your station's display. There are lots of choices out there. We think we do a good job with it. We'd love to talk with you. Think digital first and work together. So if you want to take a QR code, everybody likes QR codes. This will take you to the report. Feel free to do that. It's not a hard address, QReport.com. So feel free to go to that. Now, some additional, whoops, sorry, should have known better. Okay. Now, Paul McLean and his team just published an ebook that came out earlier this past week, came out midweek. It has a lot of information about this report, so radioworld.com ebooks. Would love for you to take advantage of that. Something else that is happening for you, and again, this is where industry vendors and participants are coming together to make it easier for you. You have limited time resources. Certainly we all have limited financial resources, but limited time resources. We're very aware of that. And so we are trying to make sure that it's as easy. You buy the Nautel transmitter, boom, it powers up. With QUU, you get the free test drive that lasts you for 90 days, so you have an opportunity to see how it works, and then we'll come back and talk with you to see what features you want to include. But we do want to thank the folks at Nautel for that. We want QUU to be an engineering solution that grows ratings and revenue. For years, all that was happening on the dashboard was an engineering solution, and this is kind of the basic schematic. Now, Joe and Alan are presenting later today, and you're going to see these next 3 slides with much more comprehensive explanation than I will, because I'm that guy. I'm not one of the engineers. But we know this basic system. The output of the automation system went into some type of middleware that went to the RDS encoder. Not anything surprising, and that's what the industry operated on for years. And then we saw that we started bringing interaction with your traffic systems and with vCreative, and we moved to a cloud installation. So we sit on the output of your automation system with other inputs, and then we send that to your RDS encoder or your HD encoder. But where the new generation that I think is so pertinent for the group in this room now, we enable the salespeople to manage their content without it running through the rack room. We enable the programming team to have limited password-restricted access to control their product, their content, without it running through the rack room. So engineering then goes from being, as someone said to me the other day, I'm so thankful I'm not having, I think that person's in the room now, but I don't want to quote him. I'm so thankful that I'm not having to enter every line of text. we're really trying to make this a much more powerful tool for you. So we want it to be an engineering solution that does provide ratings and revenue growth both. It's a great message. Lots of engineers say to us, finally, I can take something back to the ownership or general managers. It says, not only will this make my life easier, but we can make money off of this. And then very quickly, just to move through some slides, we do it by providing two different types of technology for you. Synchronized advertising messages. That's where it runs in conjunction with the commercial as it plays. And then we have some really cool products, sponsorships, content partnerships, day part sponsorships, things of that nature. I'm going to slide through these, and then I'm just going to give you some idea starters that are here, just so you can see the type things that some of your peers are doing. You see that you have the opportunity to use messaging. Again, these can run over the top of a commercial while the commercial's airing. One thing that I will point out, and then I'll come to an end, research has shown that listeners are really annoyed by and confused by the fact when you're running one client's visual message while you have somebody else's audio commercial on. And I know most of you are thinking, really? You spent money on research to figure that out? But that's what our industry was doing. And they're driving down the road and they're thinking, wait, I'm hearing a McDonald's ad, but I'm seeing an ad for a law firm. And here's the part that each of you should understand from that. The listeners say things like, the guy in the studio forgot to push the button. The technology is outdated. There's a lag. The system's not working like it's supposed to. That's what P1 listeners are saying about that experience. So make sure that as you're doing this, you're aware of the long-term impact that you can really have on the listener's experience. And we're happy to help you with that. We'll be around throughout the show. I wanted to give you those idea starters, but if anyone has any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer those. But obviously, we have a lot of examples. Oh, by the way, I should say, this works great with RDS stations, not just HD stations. I own a group of radio stations. For years, my number one billing station using this technology was RDS only, because the text is what drives this. The image and the logo is sexy and it's beautiful. And I strongly encourage you to do it. I'm going to go back one to an RDS slide. I encourage you to do it, but the part that you need to think about your own experience, you're driving down the road, you hear a song that you like, and you look over and you see the album art, and that's great and it's beautiful, but what you want to know is who's singing the song and what's the name of the song. And it's the same way whether you're putting weather information up, it's the same way whether you're putting client information up. People want to know the text. I strongly encourage you to expand and go into HD and DTS. It's a great experience, but don't be hesitant if you haven't had an opportunity to do some of the other stuff. And I think I may, there we go. And thank you very much. Any questions? I'll be glad to answer now. Or I don't want to overdo the time, I will be glad to stick around and answer. Any questions? Either a resounding flop or I answered all your questions, so I hope it's the latter. Thank you very much.